All right. I think we're live. We'll find out in a minute. Doo-doo-doo. Oh, I'm getting greeted. Wonderful. Excellent. Good to see everybody. Oh, that's better. Instant aging. New function. So I hope everybody's doing well. This is not going to specifically be a Doctor Who stream, but I expect it will be the topic that comes up a lot. Call it a hunch. Hope everybody's doing well. I hope you are staying cool if you are in an area affected by heat, which I am. First time here? Well, it's nice to have you here, Ethan. Have you enjoyed all the memes about Sutek? Seen all the previous plot threads and every time the TARDIS was attacked? Yes, I have been enjoying those, Zactyl. I arguably made one myself. So. Well, Craig, it would be if it was wine. This is water. That is my official story. Yes, I know you were, Ms. Wicked Wolf. I am aware of what your name on there is. I have put that together. Liquor. You think that is liquor? Okay. A little bit of an education. Not every form of alcohol is liquor. Liquor is stronger than wine. Wine is stronger than beer. So if you think this is liquor, we're all in for a hell of an evening then. No, that was not in any way intended to be what I implied, 255. How could I reject the interpretation that 12 was in love with Claire? The man clearly pined for her like a bleeding puppy dog. Okay, if you're asking me if it's romantic love, yes, I do reject that. I will reject that. I will reject it forever. Platonic love is a thing. Platonic love is valid. But yes, I reject that he was in romantic love with her. I absolutely frickin' do. All day, every day, until the end of time. Candy is dandy, but liquor is quicker. Or at least, things go quicker if you liquor. Who said that? Let's see. Sonic Screwdriver made it liquor. Oh, they're on to me. Like the top of the necklace? Thank you, Jen. I rather like them too. Sorry, give me a second. I also, I've got some stuff on that I picked up at the Renaissance Fair over the weekend. My boyfriend actually got me the earrings, which are swords, but I've also got the ear cuffs, which is the rest of the danglies. Those I got for myself. Because I am occasionally spoiled, but I will buy my own stuff sometimes. What are my thoughts on The Brave Little Toaster? It's a fun movie. I didn't see it as a child. I only saw it as an adult, so I can't speak for the childhood trauma many claim to have had. High Voltage, you get a little gay heart from me of appreciation for the super chat. And let's see what we got. The finale has given me a lot to think about, but one major thing is I think Doctor Who should go back to having a script editor and a producer like Classic Who. RTD needs someone to tell him no. I mean, he has co-producers, but the thing is, his co-producers are the people who have always worked with him. Like, it's hard to know. Like, there are advantages and disadvantages to every structure that has ever been had in the history of Doctor Who or television in general. Because, like, that, what you're suggesting sounds good until you get a producer who just shuts down good ideas, and then suddenly it becomes restrictive, and you're like, let the script editor do more, and, you know, no matter what it is, there will be a problem. If only because people are always a problem. If there isn't an inherent problem with the system, people will make it a problem just by virtue of being people. So. Black Cover, I reject your framing of the 14th Doctor as having sat in the garden. That dust covered the entirety of the planet so frickin' fast, I don't think he had time. I am fully willing to assume that the Nobles and the 14th Doctor were caught in the dust. I'm comfortable with that. Actually, it's one of the aspects of escalating as fast as it did where that works. It covers for that, which I say problem. It's not a problem for me. I don't have a problem with the idea that the 14th Doctor does, in fact, just stay in the frickin' garden. I do not have an issue with that idea. Some people very much have an issue with that idea. So if you do, I do think they covered it well enough. Vanessa Davidson, thank you very, very much for the super chat. I greatly appreciate it. No comment or question, but I appreciate it nonetheless. Let's see. Do you still go by Nathaniel, or is it just Vera now? I mean, Nathaniel's not a dead name. I'll answer to it. I'm not offended by it. I'm not dysphoric about it. But at this point, almost everybody calls me Vera. It's just kind of settled that way. So it's slightly weird hearing Nathaniel, if only because I hear it so infrequently at this point. So, I saw a lot of deer and bunny rabbits this week. You know, for a split second, my brain cut the T off of rabbits, and I thought you said you saw a lot of deer and rabbis this week. Made me wonder what the heck's going on down at the synagogue these days. I thought the man the spoon lady mentioned was the David Tennant Doctor. I'd have to rewatch that scene. Honestly, I don't think there's any hidden meaning to that scene. I think it's just a scene to illustrate the damage. And like I said, the idea of memory dying is unsettling. Like in a good way. Like good, strong storytelling idea. That, yeah, I like that scene. Are you going to buy a 15 Sonic when they finally make it? Well, they have made it, but like not in readily available quantity. The initial batch were all pre-sold, and who knows when they'll have more. Yes, I do plan to get one. Right now, it's just a real pain in the butt to get. Oh, that's fine, Black Cover. It's hard for me to tell, like especially over text. Remember, I can't hear your tone over text. So if in your mind it has a sarcastic tone, keep in mind I'm probably going to read it as if it didn't. Lion King's turned 30 yesterday. Good for Simba. Choosing Space Babies as a season premiere was a bad idea. All right. So I'm going to disagree, not because I think Space Babies is a good, particularly good episode or even a particularly good opener, but I am going to say that if you cannot make Space Babies not exist and have something completely different in its place, if you have that lineup, if it's those 8 episodes, but you're just switching the order around, I don't think there's anything else that has any business being first besides Space Babies. You know what's weird? I didn't actually know if you liked men until you mentioned having a boyfriend just now. You're more open about gender than sexuality. I mean, most of my relationships have been with with more or less femme identifying people. You know, a couple of sort of demigender folks in there, but still leaning femme. So, you know, a boyfriend is new for me. At least as a romantic concern. For other things, What are we drinking? Water. Officially, this is water. Crisp, clear spring water. And if it looks like it's not clear and like there's color to it, well, I check the color settings on your monitor. That's a problem on your end. Looks clear to me. Vanessa Davidson. Oh no! Forgot to type my question. Oh, I'm so sorry. Have you heard that Mrs. Flood is Clara theory? What are your thoughts? I've been seeing a small multitude of theories in my comments. That is one that's coming up. Apparently, she's like worn a couple of outfits from a couple of different companions. Clara was one. Apparently, she also wore at some point an outfit that was worn by the original incarnation of Romana, played by Mary Tam. So I've seen it. I don't put a lot, like, I don't have thoughts. I don't put a lot of value in it, partially just because I'm not a speculator anyway. You all know that. Unless you're new here, in which case, hi. Oh, crap, 179. That's actually big for a streaming audience for me. So maybe some of you are new here. But regardless, like, the idea of it being her being a previous companion, like, I literally have no opinion on, because we don't know enough about her for me to be surprised by her being literally anybody. To be 100% honest about it, like, there's nothing to subvert by revealing that, oh, she's actually blah. I'm like, okay. Like, I have to have expectations of who she is pretending to be before you can surprise me with who she really is. But she was basically introduced as she's not what she seems, and so her entire basis is she's not what she seems, so I literally have no sense of what she even seems to be. So my investment in that whole mystery box is pretty low. And I don't like mystery boxes in the first place, so it was never going to get high, but even there it's pretty low. That doesn't mean that I think it's necessarily going to be bad. I do think fans will argue about it, because fans love to argue. But you know how it goes. Where did I put? Gengar Venom. Ooh, that's an intriguing thought. Thank you for the super chat. With Donna and Rose working for UNIT, it's kind of weird they wouldn't ask 14 for help. It would fly in the face of rehab if they did, but how could you not when the fate of the Earth has at stake? For my money, UNIT doesn't know he's there. I mean, like, you can make your arguments, but yes, but UNIT should know, or like the spy or whatnot. Like, doctors like extended the perception field to like be off their radar or something. I don't think they even know the doctor's there. I think that is something that is being kept on the DL, so that they don't do exactly that. Which is the best Muppet movie? The Muppet movie. Original one's the best one. High Voltage. Thank you very, very much for the super chat. Coming in again, at least with the old system, you could get a Barry Letts and Terrence Dick. Sure, you could get a JNT, but at least you still had someone like Andrew Cartmel to balance that out. Like, yeah, again, I'm not saying one is inherently better. There's problems with every system. Either, you put checks and balances in a way that start checking ideas that maybe were good ideas that should have been allowed to go forward, or you give all this creative freedom and ideas that maybe should have been stopped fly through. Like, at a bare minimum, as a rule of thumb, in my mind, any creative who has the majority control over their creation should have a couple of friends who they can ask for honest opinions on and who they will listen to. Like, George Lucas needed that for The Phantom Menace especially. There was lots of stuff that if he just had someone who he could trust to be honest with him and go, George, no. To some of it. Not even all of it, just some of it. makes the difference. But, at the very least, that's why, say, if you're a writer, beta readers are important. It matters. What bugs me a little about The Lion King? It depicts Africa as being devoid of humans. It's like a terra nullius stuff. I mean, I guess I get that, but at the same time, it's just not a story that benefits from the integration of humans, so I'm okay with it. Tara Staller, thank you very much for the super chat. Hey Vera, you mentioned the cultural appropriation comment being a quip about Sutekh. Do you think it is meant to be a meta commentary reflecting on the show's use of Sutekh in the first place? Yeah, I think it is precisely that. One could argue it's a little bit of lampshade hanging, considering that while they don't put Sutekh in the Egyptian mask, they still designed him in a way that was evocative of the way dogs were depicted in like hieroglyphics and ancient Egyptian art. So you could argue they were kind of they were trying to excuse the fact that they were still a bit culturally appropriative, but I mean, I'm not of that culture. It's not my place to say whether or not it is respectful or bad. I'm just, it's a thing. Coyote Azul, thank you very, very much for the super chats. People popping off today. My goodness. It could always be worse. You could have writers from the 70s tomorrow, people. Boy, howdy, the cringe. I have heard that, Coyote Azul. I have never seen it. I know that show only by vague reputation. As much as I don't care for space babies, I'm intrigued at the forthcoming novelization that's being penned by Alison Rumfitt, author of Brainworms, as featured on Philosophy Tube. Oh, well, that is interesting. Do you know what Sutekh means in Polish spelt without the H? Oh, that's a good soundtrack, My Great Movie Ride. Grab it. If you can snag it, do it. All right. I'm going to look this up and probably regret it. Okay, that's pretty funny. The Bogeyman pun flew over my head for most of the episode due to being from the US. I think the only reason I caught it was because it always stood out to me when, back when I did watch the Harry Potter films and read the books, that, they were like, ugh, troll bogeys. Like, that stuck in my head. I think that was the only reason it I caught on to it quicker than probably most Americans did. Sure, Carolyn, add it to the list. My experience with the 70s Tomorrow People was watching it on 80s Nickelodeon. Oh, back when a huge chunk of Nickelodeon was stuff in black and white. And not even just like the Nick at Night stuff. I remember when they used to run Bosco cartoons. I remember it was a big deal when they stopped doing it. And I was like, fine, we'll do more Looney Tunes and no more Bosco, we promise. It was like an actual thing that they put on the station. I remember it vividly. Oosh. Hang on. Yeah. Do this right. Oosh. No 3-parter for Jodie's era or Shooties. I mean, have we had any good 3-parters? I'm trying to think 3-part stories. Arguably, Utopia, Sound of Drums, Last of the Time Lords. I don't consider that a 3-parter because Utopia is a pretty self-contained story that just sets up the following. I don't really think of that as a 3-parter. Maybe arguably Face the Raven, Heaven Sent and Hellbent. Again, though, I think those are more like each one is a sequel to the one before, as opposed to 3 parts of a continuing, story. What else? What else? Well, I mean, there is undeniably the Monk 3-parter from series 10, which started out phenomenally because Extremis is great and actually still works as a standalone. And Pyramid at the End of the Earth was cool setup. Lie of the Land dropped the ball, so like that wasn't great. Oh yeah, it's so Turn Left, kind of the same as Utopia. It is a self-contained thing, but it sets up what's coming after that. There aren't many things that I would consider pure 3-parters. And most of them haven't been good, at least not all the way through. I think if we're gonna consider the ones that are more or less standalone but set up the ones that follow to be 3-parters, then probably Turn Left, Stolen Earth, and Journey's End would be the best one, if not the only good one. Did you care for the Inunus explanation of 73 yards? They didn't really explain it. Like they gave a vague hand-wavy thing of that's the reach of the perception filter, and the doctor gives a wishy-washy strange things happen at 73 yards. So there isn't an inverse universe explanation, which is good. They should never explain that. They would ruin it. This week I was walking through some woods, and in the top of a sloping field, I decided to do a pee against the hedge in the corner. Turns out the homeowner was trimming it on the far side. Oh no! Oh, 255, I'm so sorry. Kind of funny how the toy maker's claim of making a jigsaw out of the Doctor's history does help with a lot of headcanon if you want it to. Yeah, I mean, people can roll with it. People can put as much or as little stock into lines like that as they want. I'm glad that's all it was, 255. I am sorry about that, though. That's rough. The only other one I can think of falls into what he says: Villa Diodati, Ascension, and Timeless Children. Oh, 3 bad episodes. Yeah, no. Nope. Big no. Would you consider Flux a 6-part story? Only by the strictest definition. Flux is a mess. Like, there's only one part of the story proper that, like, is actually pretty good, and that's Once Upon Time. But, like, it does setup, and then a story that could basically almost be completely extracted out of the Flux stuff with War of the Sontarans. So it feels like a standalone crammed in. Then Once Upon Time, which is the only one that deals with the main story that's actually any good at all. And then there's Village of the Angels, which again feels like a completely standalone story crammed to fit into this. And boy, does that one fall apart once the Flux takes over the story. And then our last 2 parts just dealing with the Flux stuff, and they suck. Like, I suppose, like, by the strictest definition, but it's a mess. It's not even serialized. It's just a mess. So Sutek evolved from a man with a donkey head to a huge jackal. It was always a jackal head, Rowan. It was just, 70s production values. David Geip, thank you very much for the super chat. Saw your video. Thank you for explaining the memory TARDIS. Improved my enjoyment of the episode retroactively. Oh, I'm glad that helped. Again, maybe more of the audience would know if Tales of the TARDIS were available officially outside of the UK. God damn it. You can find the clips that are the interactions between old doctors and companions around, assuming they haven't been taken down yet. But they're unofficial uploads, and they could be yanked at any moment, so who knows. Jen. Aw. Have a pride heart. No question, just wanted a pride heart. Well, you can have one, Jen. As an actual Egyptian, I don't mind how Sutik was portrayed in the original story. Cool. Good to hear. Flux is absolutely a 6-part story, although I suspect that the second and fourth episodes were conceived standalone and retrofitted into the Flux storyline. Yeah, I agree. Dalek's Master Plan kind of feels like more than one story, as does The Chase, even though they are single stories. I haven't gotten to any of those. VPNs are available everywhere. Yes, but not everyone can afford to have VPNs. There are some things in place to still give you a hassle with some things. Like Phoenix, it's very easy, especially if you have a VPN, to act like, oh, it's no big deal. But like, don't assume that everyone has either the tech savvy, and I know you're like, oh, but they're so easy. If people don't know how to use them, they don't know how to use them. Or the money to throw at a subscription. Not everybody does. About Ms. Frizzle as a Time Lord. I have seen more than a few Time Lord Ms. Frizzle cosplays about. I've seen at least 2, including at Gallifrey 1. Have you ever been in a situation where someone is totally justified in wanting to lay into you and you end up just apologizing over and over while they yell at you? Yeah, I think probably most people have been in that situation. Moving on. I would personally like to see Doctor Who have another go at a serialized series. Just use Flux as a guide of what not to do. See, I fundamentally do not want Doctor Who to be serialized. I just flatly don't, for one very simple reason. And when I say serialized, I mean like in our modern conception. Obviously, Classic Who was serialized, but like that they still had, all these different stories over the course of a season. Our current conception of serialization, where over the season you tell one story, I never want that for Doctor Who, because for me, a massive part of the appeal of Doctor Who is the fact that any given episode can go anywhere and do anything and tell any story. Any genre, any tone. It can be funny, it can be scary, it can be heartwarming, it can break your heart. It can jump around so much. The freedom that this setup gives to just do something completely wild and out of left field from episode to episode is a huge part of the appeal of the show to me. So the idea of locking it down and telling one continuous story over a season, no, don't do that. No lie, when they canonized the memory TARDIS, I actually had a bit of an Ian Malcolm moment with RTD. You did it. Crazy son of a bitch, you did it. References. Okay, what we got? High Voltage, back again. Thank you very much. I know you're not a big fan of this idea, but I'm not against the idea of Doctor Who going on a break. I just really don't want my favorite show falling into the same issues again. And it seems to be, I don't have a problem with the show going on a break. It just needs to be, I just need to have it rigidly defined. Like, here's one of the things that people tried to clap back at me when I said 8 episodes is not enough. They were like, but this is what we need to guarantee we have a new season every year. I personally, and I know I don't speak for everybody, but if you were to ask me, I'd rather have a 13 episode season every 2 years than an 8 episode season every year. Maybe I'm the only one, but I would genuinely prefer that. Jones? Sorry, the font's throwing me off. Regardless, thank you very much for the super chat. Adore your content and happy Pride Month. Thank you, and to you as well. Meku. All right, let me try and do it. Meku Utaharu. Thank you very much for the super chat. I've been enjoying your Doctor Who show reviews for years now. Will you ever resume your Big Finish reviews? Wondering how you feel about their Sutek stories. I occasionally get to Big Finish. It's on the secondary channel. It's in the break room of Geeks. I really have not had the time to do it very much, but I still, on occasion, do it. I just haven't had time to commit to it as a regular feature. So I do need to jump over to the Discord because if you weren't already aware, a Patreon exclusive perk for $2 a month and above supporters is the Council of Geeks Discord, including a channel where they get to ask me questions that will be asked here. It is the one way, aside from Super Chats, to guarantee that I will see and respond to your comments. So let me jump over there, see what I've got, and I will be back as quick as I can. Do you think movie theaters will ever go away entirely? Steve Shives made a video where he said he thinks eventually home stream services will replace going to the movies, just like e-readers will replace printed books. And I actually think he's wrong, because a big part of going to the movies is the experience of watching something on a gigantic screen surrounded by strangers. Like a movie theater near me screens It's a Wonderful Life every December. People still go, though you can literally watch it on YouTube because they want the experience of watching a classic holiday movie in a theater setting. Steve is a nice guy. He's wrong on both counts. Physical books will never be fully replaced by e-readers, and movie theaters will never fully go away. They may well become a niche business. That is distinctly possible. I think he's making an assumption based on how, like, CDs died in favor of MP3s. The thing there is, though, while vinyl has stuck around for nostalgic reasons and aesthetic reasons largely, the reason that CDs largely died off is because there really was very little substantively different about the experience of it. You pop in a CD or you put on a playlist, the playlist gives you more options, but you're still listening to it through headphones, through speakers, through whatever. So that's why that physical media went away. In the case of something like books, there is a tactile, different experience reading a book or sitting in a theater, or hell, going to a drive-thru. Drive-thrus never frickin' died. There's several in my state. So when the experience is tactilely different from the thing, quote unquote, replacing it, then I think it is unlikely to ever go away in full. It may become small, it may become niche, but it will not go away 100%. The book I'm reading has a character in it who covertly stalks and SAs the woman he works with because he can't get tenure at his university on account of being a white man. Oh, wow! I can't decide if it's reasonable for me to be annoyed with the author for suggesting DEI programs are so prevalent in academia they actually stymie white men's careers, because the book's message seemed to be white men shouldn't be so angry about DEI holding them back. It's just that it doesn't really. So, oh boy. I would never want to read that in the first place. Like, I can appreciate that the author is framing this guy's response as wrong, as disproportional and wrong and awful. But at the same time, yeah, he kind of is accepting as a given that DEI muscles white guys out of work. And yeah, accepting that as your base premise is already a problem, even if you go on to say, and people who are mad about that are jerks, which yes, they are, but it is also isn't what you're framing it as. So yeah, that's not good. Do you think there will ever be a major biopic about George Orwell, or do you think socialism being such a big part of his life will prevent Hollywood from ever going for it? No. There might be, eventually. They'll tone it down as much as they feel like they can get away with. Not necessarily tone down its importance to his life, but like tone down the specifics of what it was he wanted and what it was he believed. That's very standard for biopics. Do you agree with the common criticism that the Series 14 finale had an overbloated cast? What? No. Most of its characters had no reason to be there. Most of its characters were dead in 5 minutes. What? People tend to point to Rose, the Vlinks, Harriet Arbinger, and the Kind Woman as being particularly superfluous. First of all, the Kind Woman absolutely is not. I reject that. They're wrong. The rest of them, how can it be overbloated when they're dead 5 minutes in? What? That's a very weird take. That's a common criticism? This is literally the first time hearing of it. That's a bad take. That's a bad take on both counts. Because those characters aren't eating up screen time, really, in any meaningful way. It's just so that there's a couple of identifiable faces amongst the masses that die, because otherwise it's just all these people who we have not embodied in any way, shape, or form died. You gave us some faces we know, so we can relate to it. Like, that's standard storytelling 101. This is a common criticism? Really? And the kind woman is not superfluous. That scene is great, and people are wrong. And I have a lot of criticisms about that episode, but that scene is great. Do you think the trailer for Series 14 gave too much away by showing the memory TARDIS sand engulfing the Earth and the still Susan Triad standing in front of pyramids? Personally, I don't think it's anywhere near as bad as the Johnson Master reveal in the Series 10 trailer, but I can't help but think I may have found the reveal of Sutekh and the memory TARDIS more exciting if I hadn't already seen them coming. Well, first of all, I missed the Susan Triad standing in front of the pyramids. I missed that one fully, so I didn't even catch that. The sand engulfing the Earth, like, we had no context for what that meant. So, like, from my experience, no, I don't think they gave too much away. And, like, even the memory TARDIS, I would have missed if I didn't have people in my Twitter feed catching on to it and pointing it out. So, like, it's one of those things where it's too much if you are embedded in the kinds of online cultures where people are going to pick it apart and try and figure out what it means. I try and avoid that as much as I can possibly get away with despite my job, so I was fine with it. But yeah, Series 10, that was bad. I actually got really lucky because by the time that reveal happened, I'd forgotten he was in the trailer for the series. So I got lucky there. Some people are speculating that the way Sutekh's death brought people back to life might be used as a means to bring back the Time Lords. Nope, they're wrong. They are wrong because Sutekh's death only undid the deaths that Sutekh caused. Like, I understand he's framing himself as the god of death and, like, bringing death to death. Like, that's poetic language. The only deaths that were reversed were the deaths he caused. He didn't kill the Time Lords. They're not coming back because he died. I should read the rest of the comment, I suppose. Do you think the Time Lords will ever be fully retired, or will they forever be stuck in a loop of dying and being Deus Ex Machina back into the universe? Oh, probably. It's probably going to be one of those things where they just back and forth it for goddamn ever. Just have them be alive, but use them sparingly. Just as little as possible. Yeah. I think that we have had only 2 series finales, including special runs, that did not draw on classic Who antagonists. Series 6 and Series 11. 2 out of 14. Do you think the show needs to grow out of its reliance on its past? So, 2-part answer. Like, overall, philosophically, yes. Do I feel that is best exemplified by the finales? No, not really. Because I think in most cases, they've been fun. They've been fun more often than they haven't. Do you think the scene in Empire of Death with the kind woman and the baby felt like it was dropped in from a more interesting episode? It certainly went for a tone that the episode could have leaned into a hell of a lot more than it did. I'm not sure that the story that was actually being told would have benefited from that, though. I could see someone making that argument. I'm not sure I agree. But that's one of those things, like, I don't agree, but I'm not going to fight you on it. If you were not completing the whole run for Jumpgate, would you have bailed on Babylon 5 Season 5 by now? Now being the latest podcast that dropped. As my oh my, that first main storyline sucked big time. I just wanted Bester to come and mentally vivisect Byron, which gives the analogies they were playing off was probably not the creative intent. Yeah. Okay, so I probably would not have bailed simply because it's season 5. And knowing that it was the last season, even if I wasn't committed to doing Babylon 5 for the podcast, if I had gotten this far, I'd probably muscle through regardless, just because I'm almost done. And while it's gotten easier for me to bail on stuff I'm not liking, when, like, there's half a season left out of 5 seasons, I'm like, just power through. But yeah, the telepath storyline in season 5 of Babylon 5 sucked. Holy crap. Wow, it sucks. Dang. Okay. I am back in the stream. Oh, a couple of super chats came in while I was out. Here we go. Woo! Coyote Azul. Thank you much. Wow, these are the most super chats I've seen in a long time. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I didn't know if it was tacky for me to point that out because I didn't know if that would come across like me going, yay, money! But, you know, thank you, and it's appreciated. And also, yay, money! Thomas Jerome Newton. 22,000 CLP. Whatever that might be. Hopefully it's a Nigerian university and not UBI. I'm not entirely sure. Oh, in regards to the question from the Discord? And again, Thomas Jerome Newton coming back. The Time Lords as Swiftian satire of UK academia. The Time Lords were often satire of many things, largely of bureaucracy, which I actually think is one of the least. It's one of the many reasons that I don't like most Time Lord storylines during the classic era, because they're used to satirize such mundane, earthbound things. It just makes them seem too human, and that makes them infinitely less interesting to me. It's really weird to read a book where the author is advancing a propaganda narrative but defending it as justified as if it's real. Not everyone has the self-awareness to realize they're doing that. Some people know and are trying to cover it. Some legitimately don't realize. Kind of wish that Yasmin Finney was the new companion. I would like that too, but I mean, if she doesn't want the job going, you know, for as often as she would have to come back for it, like, that's fine. And I don't even know if that's the case. I'm just throwing that out there. What would you say to Keith David as Omega? That would work. Oh, that would work. Which story would you say is better overall? Pyramids of Mars or Legend of Ruby Sunday / Empire of Death? Probably Pyramids of Mars, but not by as wide a margin as a lot of fans say. That story is overrated. It's not bad. It's not bad. I'm very careful when I use the phrase overrated. You need to remember that overrated just means not as good as you had been led to believe. And I've used this analogy before. If you go to a restaurant and your friends tell you, when you go here, order the steak and it will be the best steak you ever have in your life, and you go there and it's not the best steak you had in your life, it's a good steak, but it's not the best, it is fair to say that that restaurant was overrated by your friends. Something can still be very good and be overrated. Pyramids of Mars is overrated. Down, Vera, down. Whoopsh. Never! Well, guess I'll have to actually watch Doctor Who like everyone else I know. I mean, if you don't want to, that's okay, Coyote Azul. That's fine. You don't have to. I mean, I like it, obviously. Old Web Shooter. Thank you very much for the super chat. I greatly appreciate it. What is the best written Big Finish Doctor Who story, not just for Big Finish, but compared to the TV series or even written fiction in general? Ooh, you did the same one twice. Well, have a second heart of appreciation. So I am still, my personal favorite is still The Holy Terror, which is the 6th Doctor story, and I think is an absolutely amazing piece of work that I adore. I think the one that from just a pure, like, really good writing standpoint, I think my second one might be actually a story that was part of a box set, but I'm going to give you a specific one. So in the first series of The War Master, there's a story called The Sky Man, which is really good and really dark. and is just a phenomenal piece of science fiction writing. Like, even it does, honestly, you could present that story on its own to somebody with pretty much no knowledge of Doctor Who, and if they appreciated sci-fi at all, it would still hit them. That is a masterfully done story. The Skyman. The War Master, Series 1. Oh, man. Not the only episode in relation to Mars that you find overrated, huh? That's true, Mr. Zaki Boy. Mars has a tendency to give us overrated episodes. Although I think Empress of Mars might be hated, actually. And yes, Old Web Shooter, hit me up with a second question. Go ahead. You paid for the privilege. You paid for the privilege. Please do. Aaron O coming in with the Canadian bucks. Here we go. Cosplay idea. Susan Triad has Riff Raff from Rocky Horror. When she turned evil, she certainly looked like him. Yeah, with the way they moved her hairline back a bit. A little bit. That's a fun idea. Oh boy. Mine were Chilean pesos. Oh, thank you for that information, Thomas Jerome Newton. I may or may not remember that in future. I cannot promise. You've arrived on a rather special night. It's one of the master's affairs. Which one? Last stream, I told you I think parents should try to talk their teenage kid out of moving to London to be an actor, and you disagreed. What would you say if your kid said that? My main questions for my kid would be, are you sure you can cover your rent? I mean, my concerns would be purely logistic. And even then, it would just be about, like, do you have a place to live? Can you pay, for your half of the space and resources? If the answer to those questions is yes, power to you. Go forth. I actually loved Empress of Mars. If RTD wants to bring back some more aliens from Classic Who, I hope for more Martian episodes and bring Alpha Centauri along for the ride. The Alpha Centauri bit, it's funny. I hadn't seen either of the Peloton stories when Empress of Mars aired, so I didn't fully appreciate that cameo. It was still funny in and of itself. People like to suppose Wonka's a Time Lord. I think Dr. Frankenfurter might be one too. Oh, could be, actually. You could make a case. A case could indeed be made. I'm not sure I'd be the one to make it, but was Fame the first movie to acknowledge the whole Rocky Horror Midnight screening craze? I have no idea. Rowan, I have never seen Fame, so I couldn't tell you. Let's say it's New York instead of London. Same thing, 255. My answer doesn't change with the city. Excuse me. Thomas Jerome Newton. By the way, rest in peace, Donald Sutherland would have been a great doctor. I mean, they never would have cast him. He's Canadian, but yeah. He was in a lot of stuff I really enjoy. Where do I find Big Finish stories to listen to? Ooh, the monthly range is on Spotify for free. So like the Holy Terror, one of the ones I really love, that's on Spotify for free last I knew. I think they're still there. Hang on, let me check this. Yep, they're still there. Oh yeah, the whole monthly range. Search for Big Finish on on Spotify. They're right there. Tara Stoller. Thank you once again. I'm planning on starting a new diet inspired by my coworker. Wish me luck. Best of luck to you in that endeavor, as in all. But yeah, Donald Sutherland. That one hurt a little bit. He's amongst other things, he's in my single favorite horror movie of all time, and what I will still argue is the scariest film I've ever seen. And he's been in a lot of stuff I really liked. I think my comfort food movie that he's in is The Great Train Robbery. Although in the UK it's known as the first Great Train Robbery. I really love that movie. That one's a comfort food movie for me. Coyote Azul, back again. This stream is my current escape from my current family drama. So thanks, everybody. I am so sorry that you are dealing with drama. Drama is not fun. You have my sympathy for that. I saw a reaction to Philadelphia the other day. Do you think that movie would be better if they had Tom Hanks' character represent himself? No. No. I mean, no. Half the point of the movie is showing how hard it is for him to find assistance and find help. And that is, an extension of the experience of a lot of people who had AIDS. And showing that he needed help, but nobody was giving it to him other than, this one guy. And even he was, at least at first, kind of bigoted towards him. That's really core to the story. No. Screams in Donald Sutherland tribute. Oh, well played, Carolyn. Well played indeed. Is that Don't Look Now? No, Craig, it is not Don't Look Now. Do you think Ghostbusters would work as a TV series? What kind of stories would you like them to tell? Would it work better than the film? Not only would it work as a TV series, it did work as a TV series. The real Ghostbusters cartoon, while very much an 80s cartoon, meaning that it had way too many episodes and most of them are not good, the ones that are good are still good even now. And that's your template. It's a Monster of the Week show. Sometimes the monster is a little bit goofy, sometimes it's silly, sometimes it's not that hard to defeat, but there's a weird twist to it. Sometimes it's world-threatening. That's it. That's would it be better than the films? As a franchise, yes. I think something like Ghostbusters lends itself to episodic storytelling over the course of a series if you're going to make a franchise out of it. Will it ever be as good as the first movie? No. But if it's going to be a franchise, it would exist a hell of a lot better on TV than film. That'll never happen, though, because of budget reasons. All right, let me back up. If they went animated again, maybe they could make it work. They'd never do it live action because of how expensive it is to do those effects on for TV. They would never do it. Badre Bali, thank you very much for the super chat. The Lennon McCarthy combo Saving the World in the Devil's Court is a prequel to the Yellow Submarine in my headcanon. I think that actually kind of works. Coyote Azul, back again. Standard sensor bleep or sound effect like Metalocalypse's guitar riff for swearing. If you can find a thematically appropriate one, a specific one can be fun, but I just use the beep. Awkward Chandler, thank you very much for the super chat. If BBC hired you to write the next season, new Doctor and completely clean slate, what would you like to see? Anything goes. I always feel really bad when I get this kind of question because I'm a bad person to ask. It's the same reason that I don't do speculation or predictions about what the show's going to be. In the same way that I'm bad at that because a part of my brain goes, why are you wasting thinking energy trying to predict? Just sit down and watch it when it comes out. What are you doing? You're wasting energy. For a similar reason, it's hard for me to think of what Doctor Who story would I tell, because if I try and engage with that exercise, a part of my brain shouts at me and goes, yeah, but you're never going to get the chance. Why are you wasting your thinking energy on this? I'm a real bad person to ask. That's not to say that I would have no ideas. I would like to think that if actually granted that opportunity, that I could come up with stuff and it would remove that block. But, you know, the issue is that the issue is that I just sinking the thinking time into, ooh, and I'd cast somebody like this and do a story like this. Like, I've got my own creative projects I could be pouring that into, and my brain gets uppity at me about that. The Ted TV series has a CGI character every episode, which I think would be as expensive as Ghostbusters. No, it wouldn't, because Ghostbusters would have to have not only at least one CGI creation every episode for, you know, your monsters. You've got to have the effects of the proton packs. You need to have a ton of practical effects for the impact of those things. You got to set up squibs, stuff to explode. Like, it's not just CGI, it's an action series as well. So it would be an action show. It would be significantly more expensive than Ted. Ted just has to walk across the room and say boner. That's on the scale of these things, it's pretty inexpensive. Yep, Caroline, I'll get to the hype in a minute. One of my favorite Donald Sutherland appearances is in Kate Bush's cloud busting video. That is good. Now that I've seen that, I agree that's quite good. No modern day companions would be my first rule. Remove them for like a decade. All right, yeah. So I would like to go back. Okay, so here's a couple of very broad things I'll throw out. I would like to go back to a overtly asexual Doctor, not necessarily a romantic, but asexual. I want a companion who is neither, a person in their teens or 20s, nor from contemporary Earth. I would want a companion from the future, from the past, or non-human. So there's a couple of very vague starting points for me. Joshua Finzi, thank you very much. I do have to wrap up, so this I will try not to leave super chats hanging, but I am going to be wrapping up in a second. An interesting season from RTD, some great standalone episodes, but the execution of the overall arcs were pretty poor in my opinion. I felt the writing was inconsistent and impacted the acting. I thought the acting was pretty strong across the board. I would say if you're looking at a writing impacting the acting, that was much more of a Chibnall issue than here, at least in my opinion. And coming in with a chaser question, or a chaser statement, I guess. I'd like to get a better feel for the 15th Doctor next season, as it seems as though we don't really get to know him yet. Well, I would circle that back around to what I said about there not being enough seasons and the fact that we don't have, just a normal episode, which is where you get a lot of characterization most of the time. Do you think it's easier to come up with ideas for something that's already happened? In a way, yeah, somewhat. Anyways, I am going to wrap up. So what have I got coming up? First thing. Normally, I stream on Twitch on Wednesdays. I will not be streaming tomorrow. I will not be streaming on Twitch until Friday this week. So no Twitch stream tomorrow. I should have a review out for the latest season of The Acolyte on Thursday in my secondary channel, Break Room of Geeks. Saturday, the video is going to be my overview thoughts about the season, as well as my ranking of the 8 episodes from worst to best. So that'll be out on Saturday, and Friday will be the Twitch stream. As I mentioned, and I think that's about all I've got. David Gipe, just a last second super chat. Enjoy your day. Thank you very, very much. And thank you all for joining me. I hope that you have a good remainder of Pride Month, and that you take care of yourselves out there. So just remember, good friends, that you are beautiful. Oh, yeah. And if you aren't already following Jesse Gender, if you have a Nebula subscription, be sure to check out Identities. That'll be out in an hour on Nebula. Jesse's a good friend of mine, and I do have a bit part in that movie, in that film. So I check that out. But for right now, folks, I hope that you all just have yourselves a great rest of Pride. You are beautiful. You are valid. You are loved. Be well, be safe, be kind, and until next time, this council is adjourned.